locally or with 5051, because I know some people, and I think there was one other organization. So if you're in a leadership role, if you could just put that in addition to your name and information in the chat.
And for people who haven't been here before, we can just say that usually we are addressing pressing issues like what Jeanette brought up and that kind of thing. And we are today and this past Tuesday, we're doing a self-care format, and that Cecilia will be leading shortly and will be as
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh, sorry, guys. Got a little backed up there. I'm sorry, y'all. Whew. Okay, so if you would please put your name and where you're from in the chat. Thank you. And you know what? We're just gonna put it in the chat. Y'all, today's a great day. Bill, did you go ahead and start the YouTube?
Yes, I did.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we're just gonna go ahead and get started then. So welcome to today's session. We need to turn that off. I am not.
oops. We lost. So I think we need Adrian to put that back up. There we go. And I think Adrian was gonna do the intro to Sorting Soup. Is that true? Or Cecilia, you're gonna do it?
I am.
Okay.
Sorry, y'all. We're a little kerfluffled today. Things aren't going quite so. Such a day. Apologies. Here we go. Starting over. Stepping back. Welcome to today's Sorting Soup Decompression Hour. I'm Cecilia. Today's session is centered around self-care, the deep kind. Not just bubble baths and breaks, though those are good too, but the kind of care that sustains us through the long haul. This isn't just luxury, it's how we keep showing up. It's how we breathe through grief, through the overwhelm, the burnout, and everything else that this moment, and even moments like that devil Emile Beauvais getting confirmed, demands of us. So let's take the hour to slow down, to check in and reroute with a little bit of honesty, a little bit of laughter, even at ourselves, and maybe even a little bit of not knowing where we're going, but trusting that we are going to get there together. And we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So, next slide. So your host and support team. I'm Cecilia, your co-facilitator from Eastern Illinois Indivisible. You will have Dr. Melissa, co-facilitator from Boston, Massachusetts, and Dr. Chris, co-facilitator, San Antonio, Texas. We have Adrian, vibe check and chat monitor, who is also working with the slides and other things today because we are without our Rebecca. She's also going to be our timekeeper. We're also without Stephanie, y'all. Her dog is having some issues, like epilepsy issues. It's very bad. So if you could, good vibes for Stephanie and her dog today. She's going through it. We also have Boot Money out there, Gremlin, Philosopher, and Shaman. He's keeping his eye out. And yes, Bove got confirmed. No good news there. All right. Next slide. Adrian.
Adrian, do you want to take this? Is Adrian here? If not,
Oh, you went.
it went fuzzy. But so this group grew out of coffee and conversation after hours. And it's a spin-off group where we turn emotions into actions. And although today we're doing self-care so that we can do that. And we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 5:30 Central Time. And the group norms, raise your digital hand. And if you don't know how to do that, let us know in the chat. We want to keep the conversation civil and constructive. No spamming in the chat. And if you don't know how to raise your digital hand, it's the react button, which is like a little heart. And the second bar from the bottom is the hand. And take breaks or step away if you need to. Okay.
Thank you. This is usually our process. We're kind of gonna, this is not our process today. We're doing something a little different today. So we can, okay, we don't need the slides anymore because last week we started, thank you very much, Adrian. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. Last week we started something, and I hope y'all still have your trees. And if you don't, Adrian, can you share? Uh-oh. Where did it go? Where did it? Oh, there it goes. There we go. Come on.
Did you want me to share the tree?
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
Ooh, okay, I don't have that up. Let me find it.
Okay. I have it. If I can't. Come on. Go. There we go. Like where? No, no, don't do what I think you just did.
Something has
Please
broken
go back.
loose in MAGA world. You look at
Please go
Donald Trump's
back.
latest polling.
Please go back. Thank you.
Doing
Jeez.
things to mark the change of seasons.
So sorry, y'all.
Or, a milestone in
I hit the wrong thing. I'm so sorry. Okay. So I apologize. All right, there we go. Talk about bad timing. All right. Last week, we started the tree of contemplative practices from Maya Dore. And where we stepped off was the 7 branches. But today, again, we need to begin with our breathing because I'm kerfluffled. As you can tell, I'm just all over the place. So as you can see, I'm hitting the wrong buttons and getting us all crazy. So let's begin today in the in-between space, in our space of transition and uncertainty and possibility. Geez, okay. So put your feet on the ground if you can. And if you can't, just make sure that you're as grounded as possible in your chairs or in your bed. And whew, let's breathe together, okay? Deep breath in. And ask yourself, what are you carrying in with you today? Oh, exhale. Deep breaths in. Exhale. Another deep breath. What are you ready to let go of? Exhale. One last deep breath. What do you want to grow more of starting now? Deep breath, exhale. Take a moment and let those questions land. All right. So Shirley Chisholm said, you don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. So these are the 7 branches. We're going to finish this and then we're going to talk about it. Here.
One's life. These could be things like a seasonal retreat, could be a sweat lodge. So that became its own branch as well. So let's just talk a little bit about how the tree can be used to help you or other people find what their practice is.
Sorry.
And I know, I often use the tree as a teaching tool when I'm doing workshops or retreats. I do an online program called Waking Up to Your Life, and the tree is kind of the heart of that program. So I often use it with these questions for people. So I'll ask, was there a branch on the tree as we went through all those branches that really felt compelling to you as we learned about it? And if that's the case, really give yourself a chance to explore that. So I think what I've noticed is that, the beauty of those branches is that they really fit with people's different kinds of temperaments. Some people might really need to have more of a movement practice than a stillness practice. And that's also true for different points in our life, right? It may be true that right now creativity is what's most needed to channel your particular kind of energy. But that like in a couple of months, you may actually find like, wow, a generative practice, something like metta, a loving kindness practice is really nourishing to me. So really just having people explore the branches and seeing for them what feels most resonant with their lives right now. And then I invite people to think about things that they may already be doing. Somebody might be a really avid gardener, and the invitation is to consider how you can bring an intention into that activity of gardening in this case, and actually transform it into your practice. As you go out there to your soil every day, you might want to ask yourself a question like, okay, how is this process reflecting something in my own life? Maybe I'm getting really frustrated with all the weeds in my garden. And how is that mirroring back to me something about my life? And what do I learn about that? And then the third point that I often make, and I have to tell you, this is probably much more of a bias that I hold because I come from a Zen meditation background. So that's primary for me. But I often tell folks, like, even though there are all these branches, I actually really do believe at some point when you feel ready for it, having a stillness practice is rather fundamental because I feel like that capacity to actually know how to quiet our minds and our bodies, that kind of prepares the ground for everything else. So I know sometimes folks have a lot of resistance to that, and I don't try to push through that, but I just offer that to them as, something to explore when you're ready for it. So, and the other thing that I often do in workshops is I will give people a blank copy of the tree. And at the end of this presentation, which is coming actually in a couple of minutes here, I have a resource page that I want to share with you all, so you can actually download this blank copy. And you can also find it on the Contemplative Mind website as well. But what I love about the tree is, and I've always tried to frame it like this to people, it's a work in process. Even though when I got all that information that I was sifting through, and I was basically trying to come up with some kind of taxonomy of practice, but it was never meant to be like the end of the process. So the tree is a living organism, and the invitation is for people to create their own tree. So it may be that some of the branches that are on the tree that we came up with will speak to them very strongly, but they may actually come up with something we totally didn't expect. And that certainly happens with the practices themselves. I mean, people keep adding more and more leaves onto that tree. So it's always really fun to see what people add into it. So, that's a kind of very basic overview of the tree, and I hope the background story just gave you a little bit more of a sense of where this is all coming from. And as we move now into just some conversation and questions and answers from all of you, I would love to hear, what if you have used the tree in your work with students or with other groups, I would love to hear how you've done that, what you've learned. Yeah, all of your own discoveries are part of this process as well.
Thank you so much, Maya. So we would like to invite folks to submit their questions into the question box. I do see someone raising their hand, but unfortunately we don't use that function. So I do see some trickling in, and feel free to continue submitting those. Maya, I wanted to check if now is a good time for me to send that resource list to folks.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
So I'm sending out the resource list that Maya referenced in a chat to all attendees right now. And I'll start reading some questions. One of the first questions that came in actually right when you were referencing the study that you did was, where can folks find a written copy of this study that was used to create the tree?
Yeah, I actually, so if you go to the resource page that you're looking at and that Maya is sending to you all, I did include a link, and the report is called A Powerful Silence. So on my page, the resource page, you can actually find it from there. And it's also found inside the Contemplative Mind website too.
Great, thank you. Another interesting question that came up is, how do you think about the development of practices? Starting a practice might not be easy, but sticking with it can be beneficial.
Mm-hmm. So the question is, how do I think about that?
How do you think about the development of practices?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's such a huge thing to explore with people, right? And I feel like, people often have like a honeymoon phase to practice. It's like, they might go to a one-day retreat and just be completely, like it's something they've never done before. And hopefully it feels, like such an amazing thing in their lives that they're just like, yeah, I have to keep doing that. And then I know in my trajectory of practice, that was certainly true for me. It was kind of like falling in love with practice, right? And then, I think it's different for everybody when this happens, but I'd say it's probably pretty standard for it to happen. Like at some point, a year or 2 or 3 beyond that, you kind of hit maybe a plateau, or even, there are times, and I know Willoughby Britton really explores this, like practice doesn't always bring up just positive stuff. It can actually, churn up this whole layer of things that we have been keeping down. And that, I think, is when it's really important to be getting support, either from a teacher or a group, or just some kind of way that you're supported through that phase, because that's a really tricky part of practice, when we're actually, a tsunami of unpleasant feelings and insights is arising, and we need to kind of figure out how to work with that. Yeah. And then, I think beyond that, there's, many other subtle phases. And I know, gosh, I'm trying to remember his name, Alan, but he's a Vipassana teacher who's written a lot about this. Like, he's kind of broken it down, I think, into 9 very distinct phases of practice. So certainly there's a lot that's out there about looking at how a practice progresses. And yeah, that's a great question, though. Thank you for that one.
So this is a very timely question, I suppose. Have you thought much about the role that technology plays in these branches?
That's a great question. I mean, when we did the original tree, that was really not part of the landscape in any of the way it is at all right now. Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, inviting each of you to create the tree in the way that makes sense for you. I think for some people, it may be like, using your smartphone in a way that is more conscious and aware, and you might have specific practices to do that. Like maybe you have an app on your phone, or maybe it's not using your phone for a day or a period of time. But I think that's, right now it's especially important to actually weave that into the tree because it's so prevalent for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I have to tell you guys a personal story. Here's my technology. I have resisted all these years putting a smartphone for that very reason. I feel like, this is really all I need. And I feel like it saves me from getting sucked into that little device because I know that's what would happen to me too. So I really appreciate my flip phone.
I don't think I've seen one of those for quite some time, but I fully respect your commitment to that.
I probably will have to switch soon, but I'm hanging on to it as long as I can.
Yeah, good for you. So there are a lot of questions, so I apologize for the lag in asking the next one. I do think this comes up a lot in our work, and so I think folks would benefit from hearing about, have you thought about mindfulness in replacing awareness, or adding a slash with mindfulness, and sort of relatedly, what was the thinking around using contemplative as opposed to mindful? That was sort of an additional question, but I think it relates to this one.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if we can do this, but because I think Carrie's on the call, and I think Carrie holds some really important perspective and wisdom on this as well. So if we can maybe loop her in if she's willing to share anything.
All right.
So, way back when we were doing this, and you have to remember the name of the organization is the Center for Contemplative Mind and Society. And I'm sure there were some very intentional reasons why Mirabai Bush and the other board and founders named it that. So, I think when and the name of the report, the project was called the Contemplative Net. When we were doing the tree, it felt right to use the word contemplative rather than mindful. And I feel like it casts a broader net too. And again, you got to think back to 16 years ago. So mindfulness was not on the radar in the way it is now. And I actually feel like it's an overused word right now, right? But I love that we actually use the word contemplative because we were kind of looping in all these different traditions. The people that we interviewed were coming not only from Buddhist traditions, but from Christian traditions, Jewish traditions, Hindu. I think we had somebody who was Muslim in our interviewee pool. So, across all those, we felt that contemplative was a better way to kind of frame that back in those days. And even now, I would say that, again, mindfulness gets used a lot to describe almost everything. To me, I feel like it's more of a byproduct. It's a process and it's a byproduct of these different kinds of practices. So, mindfulness arises when we are using practices like what's on the tree. So to me, that is why I feel like I actually gravitate more towards the word contemplative than mindfulness in this in the framework of having the tree and talking about practice with people. So I don't know if Carrie is able to pipe in here, but it would be great to hear anything that you've got to offer on that.
Hi, this is Carrie. I believe am I piping in? Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I can't hear myself. I guess just to reinforce what you said, Maya, especially around the timing of the kind of arising of the popularity of the word mindfulness. I mean, I remember working at CMind in the early 2000s. It wasn't a word that I really remember being used really commonly until maybe around 2005, 2006 or so was when we really started to see an upsurge in kind of like the daily use of it. And that was right, I believe, after the time that this particular research project had been done. So apologize for the phone ringing in the background. So yeah, that's a very practical reason why we didn't use the word mindfulness then, was it was just not the word that we had at the time. And I also agree that I feel like to this day there's such a variety of definitions of mindfulness that as an organization, CMind hasn't really stepped forward to say like, okay, we think mindfulness means this, right? I mean, a lot of times folks do use what's kind of popularized as like the John Kabat-Zinn definition, but even that, I think there's different ways that we can understand the term, and that can be both a source of creativity, and it can also be kind of problematic. So we continue to use contemplative, as I understand it too, when the organization was originally named in the mid-90s by the original working group. It was also kind of a position with the idea of like a rational mind and a contemplative mind, and like what might that mean? Not that we have to stay in that sense of opposition, but just as a sense of painting a landscape of the way our minds work, and what does it mean to have a contemplative mind? So that is another reason why that word has persisted in the name of the organization. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's what I offer.
Yeah, thank you, Kira. I think that's actually really helpful, just to, again, going back to the beginnings of not only the tree, but the organization itself, and just hearing some of that perspective.
Yeah, thank you both for that. So there is another question about talking a little bit more about the active branch and providing some more examples that would fall under that branch.
Yeah. So actually, let's go back to it. Yeah, so on the tree itself here, we had things like, and again, these are coming directly from the interviewees that we spoke to, these examples. And again, later on, as the tree was used by other people will add different things to it. But examples that we got were pilgrimages to areas where social justice issues are highlighted. I remember one of our interviewees, and I'm not remembering the name of the person, but they worked with this organization that actually organized kind of like field trips for members of Congress. And they took, like one example was they took members of Congress who wanted to do this down to civil rights sites in the South. And, basically kind of framed it as an educational, but there was also, it was kind of a stealth practice, right? Because I'm not sure these congressional members would have signed up if they had known this. But, they were actually bringing people to sites that, like Martin Luther King's home, and not only offering the educational piece, but inviting people to just kind of like hold a moment of silence as they were at these places, and really take an opportunity to reflect. So that was where the practice part came in. I mentioned the bearing witness vigils that Bernie Glassman pioneered. He started doing those at Auschwitz, and now they're going on in other places as well. I know that I think this spring or summer, there are folks who are going to North Dakota to Native American sites and doing that in collaboration with the tribes there. Again, like a bearing witness to bring people together to really deeply explore, the issues that impact those people in that place. Vigils and marches were on that list as well. When we put the tree together, you remember back to 2003, 2004, this was actually right at the beginning of the war on Iraq, right? And I remember being in Northampton, going to a number of vigils to try to stop that war, to call attention to the harm that was being caused. And so people talked about how they did that in a way which, again, brought practice into that process. So how to invite reflection and quieting and slowing down into that process. And then there are the things that are not necessarily related to activism, but like I was starting to talk about, the work examples, so going to your work and even your job itself, like how can you turn that into a practice if that feels right for you, if it's the right setting for it. Or just like, work tasks, like I was talking about, like when you answer your phone, how does that become a practice? And it could also be things like, in your house, maybe washing your dishes. I think Thich Nhat Hanh is a master of really talking about how these everyday activities can become an opportunity for practice.
Thank you. This is a very interesting question. Do you know of anyone who's doing research related to contemplative practices in a non-North America or European context, such as Africa or South America?
I don't. I mean, I feel like I'm a little removed these days from the research part of all this. So I haven't heard anything. That would be great to know about. I don't know if Carrie is aware of anything that's out there. Or if anybody else is, I'd be glad to hear about it.
If attendees know of anything, feel free to submit that into the dialogue here. There is someone who said that they are planning on doing some of that research for their dissertation. So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Keep us posted on that.
Yeah, and also someone in Mexico who is, or they are Mexican and developing research about mindfulness in Mexico. So it looks like people are doing the work, and hopefully they let us know what they find so that we can share that. So another question that could be helpful for using these practices beyond higher education and just in your daily lives is, do you have an age recommendation, or do you have sort of a children's version of the tree?
I don't, but that's a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
And I think actually, it would be really interesting to explore that. And again, there may be somebody on the call who's doing this work. But yeah, to like actually hear what from a young person's point of view, how they define what practice would be, right? And then to have them work with the blank version of the tree and just see what comes through that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. Okay. There was one question, I'm sorry, I apologize. Maybe this will be the last question. There are still a lot, so I will be relaying these to you, Maya, so you can see what's being shared. But I believe there was a question about your background in cultural anthropology and seeing this work in conversation with the anthropological or sociological literature on practice, and how those two, how your background relates to this work.
Mm-hmm. Again, so I'm like taking myself way back in time here when we created the tree. This is not, I'm not doing research these days, so that's not where my mind is at. I think back when I was doing this project, it felt to me like the emphasis was more on I'm pulling together, and I feel like my background, like I was hearing what people were saying and trying to put this information together in a way like I did, like I stepped into it like I was from a different culture. Like, okay, like if I was listening to all this, and I had no idea what people were talking about, like how would I kind of convey this to a group of folks who had no background in this? So I feel like I was entering it more from that way of being an anthropologist rather than like going out and there's not a lot in that original report that is kind of doing background on like, okay, this is how contemplative practice would be defined in this culture. It wasn't that as much as it was understanding that we were seeing back in those days. It was like a cultural phenomenon that was just at the beginning of emerging. So I felt like my role was to kind of, with an anthropologist's eyes to actually, document that and figure out ways to communicate it. So I'm not sure I could answer that question exactly as it's been asked to me, but I appreciate the thinking behind it.
Mm.
I did have one last thing, Maya.
Yeah, yeah.
1 second.
Of course.
Sure. I also just want to share with folks, like, a way to use it with people. So we talked about like the blank tree as a small handout. The other thing that I've done is actually done a tree like on a really large piece of poster paper. And then in the resource page that all of you have access to, you can actually get like leaf size Post-it notes. So that's a way to get a whole all together, not just people working on their own individual trees, but actually to have a group, come up on their Post-it notes with practices, and then they put them on the physical poster tree. So that's a really kind of fun way to have a group tree created together. And so you can find the leaf size Post-it notes on that resource page that we're sending you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So I think we are going to wrap up. Thank you, Maya, for answering all these great questions. Thank you, everyone, for submitting these questions. I will share the questions with Maya after the fact. I did just want to mention a few CMind announcements. We are thrilled to announce that
Yeah, we don't need to listen to those. These are from 2016. So, time is a little different now. Oh my, what did I do? Right, I can stop sharing now. So, I hope that some of y'all were able to fill out, that's right, Jose, what is time anymore, right? I hope some of y'all were able to fill out your trees or at least start to. And if you weren't, there is a link to the tree. I hope there's a link to the tree. I believe there's a link to the tree in the chat, and so you can print it out and have it. This is what I like about this, what I've heard other people say they like about this is that it's not limited. I mean, it doesn't seem very limited. It gives you a lot of options. I mean, there's just so many options here. And because we have so many options in life, right? We have, I mean, have y'all been to the grocery store lately? To the condiment aisle? I mean, I ask because, well, I haven't personally, but I remember the last time I was there and there was just about a gazillion different options of everything. We have so many choices, so many options, so many different ways of doing everything. So we can, if there's creativity, we got creativity just bubbling up out of our rear. You know what I mean? So we have, I mean, we got options. Each of us now has the ability to rest though in those options, not in the condiment aisle, though. Please don't rest in the condiment aisle. That's just embarrassing. No. Sorry. Anyway, so the tree of I would like to hear if anyone has put anything on their tree. Jeannie, you finished your tree. Would you like to talk about it?
The main thing I think is I just am on a quest to find my group. I love this group. I love, other groups, but to find a group, whether it's with retired teachers or someone in my area,
Right.
that is really, as a part of my activists. And then always, making sure that I'm doing a gratitude list. I often forget about being grateful for so many things. I a movement, chair volleyball, um, uh, chair yoga, line dancing, just
I love
a
chair
little bit of
yoga.
all.
Let me tell you something, y'all. The one reason why I love chair yoga, my mom is a truck driver and she told me I can't do anything. I can't exercise. I'm like, Mom, if I can do chair yoga, you can do something, right? Anyway, sorry, Jeannie, keep going. Keep it
There is
going.
a little center that is a meditation center, and I've gone and taken yoga there several times, but I really do want to learn to quiet my mind because I have a little bit of HD.
I,
ADHD.
I think we all do, but yeah, I hear you.
And I don't know if when you're meditating, if you're supposed to think deep thoughts or just clear your mind. So I'm kind of anxious. I'm not anxious, but looking for
Excited.
getting, some more investigation that.
That's awesome. And I understand wanting to find your people near you. I get that completely. I would love to find my people near me. My nearest friends are like a half an hour away. So I get that. All right. Anyone else? Or do you Oh, Adrian. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I just wanted to say nobody's necessarily looking for a decisive answer, but for anybody else who might be wondering about meditation, no, like my favorite analogy is monkey mind. Guys, do you remember if it was Thich Nhat Hanh that came up with that? I'll post a video in Discord, but your mind is going to do mischievous, curious, active things when you try to meditate. Don't worry about it. If it helps, just imagine maybe catching a bubble for a minute. It's okay to think about it. And maybe at some points you want to pop that bubble and let it go. And right, the more you try, the better you'll get. So meditation may be the thing for you, or maybe a movement meditation like walking or dancing or gardening. You can meditate anywhere. So those are all possibilities. And I don't think it has to look any one way.
Thank you, Adrian. Sorry, y'all. My daughter's trying to distract me. Yes, Melissa. Thank you.
I think I was mostly going to second what Adrian said, but there were a lot of ways. I mean, I think in Western culture, we don't empty our minds very well. If you can do that, great. I know I can only empty mine for a second, then something pops up. And I think that's normal for our Western culture, and that's not a bad thing. And I think you kind of just follow it, let it go, decide if you want to pay attention to it. So, it's kind of like one size fits all. You can just do whatever, do your thing with it and make it your own, because nothing works unless you make it your own, right?
Yeah.
So That's what I have to say about that. And I agree it could be in motion, like Tai Chi is nice as meditation in motion. Dance, yoga is good as a meditation, even though there's some still meditations in yoga. Certain kinds of yoga are more active. So you pick the yoga that you want to do.
Exactly. And I agree. I think focus in Western culture, we've been taught to multitask. We've trained our brain to focus on multiple things all the time. And that has repercussions. And yeah, we're living in the repercussions.
Sometimes what happens when you pay attention, you learn something new about yourself, like when you're sitting with something or sitting with a feeling. Even if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're upset about Beauvais or whatever, something else pops up that you're actually joyful about or that you're tearful about. It could be anything, but your feelings become more accessible to you. That's another way to do it, is to sort of access your feelings and say, oh, there they are. Say hello to them. The idea is not to be panicked by your feelings or whether or not you could clear your head or what all that, but to say, oh, there's that thought. The thought's popping back. Hello. And you say hello to it. Then you get
Rebecca, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. But Rebecca makes a very important point here. When I ride my bike, my brain's voice turns off or quiets down. It's so restful mentally. My sister, when she was younger, when she would go horseback riding, her brain would check out, like she would focus. So it would just be, and then my cousin was like that with running. Like her focus would just be, yeah. So it's kind of like, that is their way of, yeah, you got to find your focus, find your brain's way of contemplative practice. And everyone's different. Some people need music. My daughter needs music all the time. Oh my gosh, Dr. Chris, she would freak out if you turned off from, even when we're doing work, right? We're watching a YouTube or something. We have our music on in the background. We have our record playing, or we have a CD playing or something like that. Yeah. The silence thing, she wouldn't be able to roll with that one. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I was looking up, I'm going to be posting different resources in the Coffee and Conversation chat, just about different ways you can just different ways you can support yourself, and support each other. Because something that I read, that there are two eyes in activism, so that you can keep an eye out for yourself and for your sister or brother, right? Because we have to keep an eye out for each other. And we say it all the time, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We say it. What are we doing? I haven't had a vacation. Like Rebecca was calling in from her vacation. She was on Zooms. So was Constance. She was calling in from her vacation. Y'all, I know we love each other, but when we're on vacation, shouldn't we be on vacation? I mean, I know for a fact when I'm on vacation, I'm going to be calling in on the Zoom. I know I am. Heck, I'm fairly certain most of my vacation I'm going to be with I'm going to be with Beth. Most of my vacation is going to be going to Michigan to hang out with Beth. So there you go. But okay, so there's some platforms for self-care for activists specifically. Let's see here. Mm, 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 mm. Identity affirming peer-led support groups focused on depression, bipolar, and burnout, especially helpful for activists under emotional strain, DBSA online support groups. And okay, so I'm going to list a bunch of support groups that are like just basically resources. We're going to have a resources section. And now I haven't actually gone to all of these yet. Not all of them. I've gone to some of them though. So I will only post the ones that I've actually gone to. Just to make sure. But yay. Yeah, that's awesome, Jeannie. Lisa, awesome. You know, I think what I'll have to do is I'll post my route to NWSOFA, like my people, and I'll figure out if I can have like lunch or coffee or something with everybody. Be like, I'm stopping here. Can we grab coffee on my way to Michigan? That'd be awesome. Okay, so the point is that in doing these things, in first of all, creating communion and connection and awareness in all that we do, right? In our communion, in our connection, and in our awareness with the people around us, with ourselves, and in everything that we do. When we create our rituals, and even in the little things, even in things as small as savoring our coffee, or in the big things, as in our religious observances, moving over to movement, getting out there for a walk, or Beth Ann Oliver, who every morning is usually out on her bike and out hiking. Hello, who is usually out doing things. Her movement branch is probably going to be just bursting with leaves. So she's got her movement branch down. Beth Ann is going to have to work on her other branches of her contemplative practices. So relational practices, let's see, engage in deep listening, share stories, call a friend or loved one. And other relational practices, I mean, to include just getting out and being around people again, right? How we don't get out and we're not with people anymore. I mean, I know we say that, I say that a lot. I don't see my friends as much anymore. I don't get out and do things as much as I used to. And it's because I'm broke. As it's like it costs so much more to do things now than it used to. I mean, it's literally $15 to $20 more now than it used to be, to do things. And since that affects, I know, some people more than others, but it affects us definitely. But and we're in different phases, right? My phase of life is different than other phases of life. But anyway, point being, I don't get out as much as I used to. So we need to get out. That was my point. Activist. And that actually, I think they said that was supposed to be active. Okay, so anyway, a social justice inspired post on social media, write your congressperson. We're about to have August. I don't know if you're doing that in your area, but we're having our hold our representative accountable in August. We are going after them, Mary Miller and Mike Bost, like mad crazy this month. Mad crazy. So if you are not doing that in your area, I highly suggest you hop on board and just do it with us. Whoever is your representative in your area, if they voted against or if they voted for the Medicaid, if they voted for the big bastard bill, then you should jump on board with us. Anyway, all right. So the creative branch, write a play or music, dance, take a photo, journal, draw, write a blog or story. Art, dance, color, sand, play with, there's so much out there. There's so much you can do. There's so much creativity in this world. I mean, you could do just about anything. Yeah. Generative branch, behold and appreciate. Visualization, spiritual reading, loving kindness meditation, and making a gratitude list. I, like Jeannie, completely love and appreciate the gratitude list. Yes, Melissa.
I was kind of on the other channel still, but I was thinking if you're in the middle of activism and it's hard to take a break or you're pushing forward, I think sometimes if you're doing something, just doing a doodle while you're doing something, like you're listening on the phone, you're doing, or even if you have to call, one of those lines that takes like 20 minutes to an hour to pick up, you could be doodling. Of course, I multitask, but doodling is a good thing. And I kind of exercises that right side of your brain that we can lose track of. And so a lot of little things you can do to insert. It doesn't have to be a whole hour or two of meditation or something like that, even though it could be, and that could be really great. You could do a retreat for 3 days, but you could also do a momentary retreat, just breathe in and out, or
Right.
stretch, or stand up and stretch, and be a tree, like,
Right.
So you could do something for a moment and it's very restorative.
That, yes. And you just made me think, exactly. These things don't have to you don't have to say, okay, I'm going to write for an hour. You can write a little, like you just said, a doodle in the corner, or you can write a haiku, which, as we know, just little 575, like this, it can just, and they have shown that doodles are really good for that side of your brain, just to check out for a little bit, even if it is something that I remember one of my teachers, if he found a doodle on your paper, he would knock you an entire letter grade. Like oh yeah, he was not having it, which was ridiculous, of course. But anywho, so
Fired. I'm sorry, he's fired. He's
right, it was ridiculous, but anyhow, yeah. So the generative, it is important to remember our souls. If you're not a spiritual or religious person, I just suggest that you at least make a gratitude list. I don't know if you're not a spiritual or like if you're an atheist or an agnostic, I would love to know what your generative branch would look like. That's just a personal pry, and I apologize. That's just honest question. Otherwise, stillness is getting harder and harder. The centering prayer or meditation, the silence and the rest and the quieting of the mind, they're doing that on purpose. They keep admitting they're doing that on purpose. They keep throwing things at you, they're trying to keep you. So sometimes it is important to just silence and quiet and shh. Yes, Laura.
Atheist here.
Yes, ma'am.
Atheist with ADHD. Bad.
Oh, goody. A twofer. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, really. Okay, generative, that's for feeling positive emotions.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's what it was described as.
well, yeah, the behold and appreciate, the visualization, and then they go on to like a spiritual reading, a loving kindness meditation, or making a gratitude list. So I was just wondering like how you would go about those approach.
Gratitude list, definitely gratitude journaling, more likely. I have not done it. It is something I've thought about for years.
All right. Thank you.
But yes, that is on the list. I don't know what else for that particular category, but I did finish my tree, though in list format, not on the tree itself. It was too hard for me to read small printing. But meditation and reading daily meditations. As far as relational, one thing, I mean, I'm pretty secluded or isolated, I guess, in Wisconsin, a village of 1,200. My friends are mostly back in Chicago or on the East Coast or the West Coast, but not too many here in Wisconsin. And I have a challenging home situation. But as far as relational, since starting in January, my friend Meg, who lives out around Boston in the burbs out there, we have been talking twice weekly, occasionally only once, but we have 2 nights a week when we talk on the phone. And that has saved both of us, both in similarly dysfunctional home life relations. But we've known each other since college, and it's been wonderful. That's how I'm able to get out of my darkness so fast. I mean, I deal with depression and anxiety with the ADHD, but I cycle through my darkness and my challenges a lot faster than I used to. Like sometimes within an hour, I can get through all the stages of processing whatever and get back and be ready to try to do something. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Laura. And just to be clear, I didn't mean any offense. I
myself, no, none taken.
I didn't think I didn't believe that. I just was wondering how someone would, how that would be approached. And thank you so much for answering. I appreciate that.
Sure. I have one more thing very quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Melissa, I think it was you the other day that you mentioned you like to edit.
Yeah.
Okay. I was a copy editor, fact checker with Encyclopedia Britannica for 8 years when I lived in Chicago, and then I left and started my own business, and kept with that for 8 or 9 years after, and then my ADHD my late diagnosed ADHD, kind of crashed everything, and I went on full disability because my brain wasn't keeping up. But I loved editing, but it's not something I would think of for fun because I don't know how to turn it off. Even now, as I read anything, I am constantly editing.
Right, right, right. Well, I wouldn't have thought of it, but I was actually in my Unitarian Universalist, a church
Oh, yeah.
that we had, and they were talking about, someone else said that they loved editing, and I was like, wow, I really love it too. And I've been thinking about that ever since. Like this is something I get a big thrill out of. I made actually help people. I made created a book with 4 other people, and I did all the editing. The only part
That
I
was
didn't like
fun.
was the index. The index was murder, but it was
Uh,
really, really great. Yeah, it was wonderful. So I think these little tasks, if you love them, and they're parts, if it's your job, it's always more than it's too much of a good thing when it's your job, I think.
I enjoyed it though. I did enjoy
Yeah,
it.
it's and the person I was said that had been like a magazine editor, and it was really interesting to hear her say that. But yeah, I think this is very true. And I also wanted to say, you don't have to be religious, one to have to honor your spirit in some ways, and it
Yeah.
could be, it could be what's meaningful to you and kind of sacred. Could be nature, it could be community, it could be other things that you appreciate. It could be anything, that is important and sacred to you. And you probably know that, but I just thought it's worth putting that forth. Everyone here does something from their soul. Everyone's doing something that is very meaningful, and maybe taking a moment to appreciate that we all do this, that we all are connected to each other, but also to something that we believe in that's meaningful to us.
Yes, ma'am. I apologize. That's where I was headed. I just got distracted by being told that I'm going to be late to my next appointment, and which is fine. Hey, me. No big deal. And that is what I was headed toward, was that next step. That, of course, spirit, that is, you don't need religion to tell you that we are all connected to this earth and to each other. Adrian, yes. And I'm going to make, yes, Rebecca the host so she can finish this up because she's here, if that's okay.
Good luck at your next appointment.
Thank you. Oh, wait, no, I can't do that. I'm going to make Alyssa the host. Alyssa, can I make you the host? Awesome.
Is there anything you want me to do as host?
Oh, yes, I do need you to finish. You're going to have to turn off the live stream,
Ooh,
which is
ask someone
fine.
how to do that. I think I can do it.
It's underneath the 3 dots
Oh,
of more, and you will
I'll
just
ask Adrian how to do it.
you just turn off the live stream. You'll be all right. Y'all, I apologize,
Oh, the 3 dots. I see. Yep.
but I will have all of the resources in the. I apologize, guys. I'm going to counseling,
Good, good.
which is exactly along the same lines as this, right?
Self-care. Self-care.
It's my daughter. It's our appointment, like the family counseling appointment. I apologize for that coinciding with this. Thank you all so much. I appreciate your patience with everything. Have a good evening. I'll have everything in the chat later. I'm going to leave now.
Adrian, you were going to say something, right? You're up next.
Yeah, I was. I'm not sure if my dog's gonna permit it, because he just started barking frantically. But I just, want to make a case for something as simple as sensorial play. By the way, atheist here, but still recovering from other backgrounds. So, um, just I noticed this when I was doing Montessori co-ops with my kids and other kids, sand play in, I don't know. Okay, just go with me on this. A bin full of warm beans, cold and warm water, that kind of thing. So that's it. I'm going to turn off the mic.
Uh-oh, she turned off her mic. So yeah, because I guess she's worried about the dog. But having a dog is another, or a cat is another thing, and that's a sensory thing. Like we took my cat had to go to the vet, and it was just miserable getting her there. But and then the tech touched her because, oh, she's so soft. She is so soft. So our dogs or cats or pets, they have that. I mean, it's hard to pet a fish, but other than that, you can
I was
and
gonna
I
say,
can
this
say,
is Olivia.
yeah,
She
Olivia.
she brings me great joy. So
And
I can
everybody else,
relate.
because when you see her, don't you feel good when you see her? I do. You can see Olivia. And I'm sure Adrian's dog is also very joyful and brings her a lot of joy. But our dogs also keep us in line. They just tell us what to do and when to do it, So the cats sort of too, in a way. So let's see. Did anybody else want to say something about their experience of self-care? And by the way, I have to say, Mira put a wonderful, wonderful video in the chat, and you should take a look at it. Maybe another time we could take a look at that together, but I think we're going back to our usual format next week. But anyone else want to comment on just what you find meaningful in terms of self-care? You have to unmute if you're going to say something. You can put your hand up, or Adrian, your hand is still up, but that's okay because your dog might want to tell us what your dog finds meaningful. Humor sometimes helps. I apologize for my weird sense of humor, but that's what makes me feel happy sometimes. Keeps me above the fray. I think Boot Money, you might be talking, but we can't hear you. So, but
Come on, Boot Money.
I'm unmuted. There's different forms of self-care, and they all sort of center around how you view the product, the self, And I think that's at the core of what we're trying to achieve, is that there's a self-realization to everything that's sort of attached to indivisible, So when I listen to Cecilia trying to walk us down those levels and get closer to that realization of, yeah, I'm just another human, my feelings are just as valuable as everybody else's, and their feelings are just as valuable as mine. Why do we not get along? So yeah, I think the self-help, um, it's more than just the physical part and more than the mental. It's an image thing of who do we think we are? I think that's the problem that we have as a nation right now. We really don't know who we are anymore. And as a result, we can't even have a conversation with each other, because we're talking to a foreign country. So yeah, I think the whole process of including whether you want to call it self-help or self-realization or whatever, in an activist program is actually sort of the key plank in the platform to keep that platform building, you know? Because, yeah, we can all get very excited about this jerk Bove going anywhere near our legal system, but we still got another bunch of Boves to face. So we got to get over it. We've got to have a technique to say, yeah, okay, I can face this and I can move forward. And I know I got a bunch of guys right behind me, and we're all moving forward sort of together. I don't know. Dr. Melissa, did you turn my keys again?
I did that. And also I have to say, while I did turn the key, I have to take responsibility for that. But also Chris helped. But I have to say your backdrop has that really transcendent quality. And I'm thinking two things. One, it's something, if we could go there, that's wonderful. But and also it makes you realize you're part of a larger, something bigger than yourself,
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful
See,
backdrop.
I think that if we start to visualize ourselves on these two levels, this micro level, which is the individual, and then on the macro level, which can be enormous if we want to go back to creation, because we know that creation began here, but it's also going to end here. If anybody's so inclined, there is a Roman Catholic theologian from the 30s and 40s. Uh, they hid his writings for quite a while. He's a Belgian named Teilhard Chardin,
Chardin, yeah, he sure
and
did.
he wrote a number of items, but the one that influenced me the most is called "The Essence of Man." And when you look at what he says, yeah, the Bible sort of does have it right. There's an alpha and the omega, and they're both the same. And I think that's what the challenge of our existence is, because we're peeling back all of the truths that happened at creation. We're just another one of the bacteria.
And we're doing quite well connecting with each other. So that's
Better
good.
than the other ones.
I think so. I'm going to shift over and just ask Judy if she would like, because she has her hand up. So we're going to move to Judy. Judy.
Hi, well, I've been really quiet today because I was actually in the car the whole time up until about 5 minutes ago. So I've been doing a lot of listening and not a lot of anything else. And I agree that for me, the work I do with Indivisible is my self-help because I also have a personal life that's very intense and chaotic, and I have a job that's very intense and chaotic. And the work I do here is one of the few places where I have any sense of control, where I feel like I know that what I do has an outcome. So I know that if I put out invitations, I get people. I had my second membership meeting and I went from having 4 people at the first meeting to having 10 people at the second meeting, and that feels good. And so to me, that's positive and relaxing because it's moving forward as opposed to feeling like I'm just spinning my wheels. And so to me, that's a good thing. Other than that, it's friends and family. And even that has its issues because I have, I end up being a caretaker there too. And so anytime you're a caretaker, it takes a lot out of you. But I really appreciate all of you and having a place to be. And I just wanted to say thank you. And thank you for having a place where I could listen as well as to speak.
Well, thank you, Judy. And you're the second person to mention having hardships in your current life. And I feel like I've been there. It's not exactly where I am right now, but oh, we have someone who's not muted. We're getting some background drop. I think that's really hard. And yet it's part of life sometimes, your job, your home, people in your life, and sometimes people are the biggest problem. If we weren't for people, have no problems at all. But people also are very joyful. And I don't know if you experienced this. I experienced this when I was going through the hardest time, probably interpersonally, like in a relational situation that wasn't good. And I did find that when I stepped back a little bit, sometimes I had a moment of joy that was especially intense. And I don't know if you find that, but I did find, maybe just because I had, my son at the time, and that was part of what brought me joy. There were people in that little setting that still made me happy. Or if it was something else, it could be I was doing a clinical job, so the clinical job was thrilling many times. Every day there was something that brought me joy. So I was very lucky. But I think sometimes underneath all of that, the cloud and the thunder and lightning and there's something that's a little bit beautiful, either about you or about somebody else. What do you think, Judy? Does that ever happen?
It's
Mhm.
It depends on the situations. And it depends on nothing, honey. It depends on, who you're working with and who you're talking to. And, I'm watching one of my friends start to have a nervous breakdown. And there's, and that makes it hard. On the other
Right.
hand, one of my friend's sons is about to get married. And so it just, it all goes from situation to situation.
Right, right. Well, you're right. And so I also appreciate what you said, that this is an area where you have control because you could start something of your own and master it. And I think that's also in a different way what's nice about editing. Even though and it involves other people, but you get something and put it together and you create. It's creative. You create something in this world, which is what we're
That's
doing.
That's always fun too. I like to do that too. I like to write, and I guess that's why I've been posting on Facebook a lot lately. If you guys may have been seeing me post, especially on uh, Patrick got me started posting on Indivisible, Illinois, and so I've been giving him a lot of stuff there. Just I've been looking for things in oddball places that other people don't necessarily look into. I happen to read the Jewish Forward every day, and most of you guys don't read the Jewish Forward, and so I'll post out of there and things like that so that you're getting another point of view.
Mhm.
Um, and out of the Tennessee Holler, and just different places that other people aren't necessarily posting that point of view, because I think we all need to be getting lots of different points of view to be able to form a solid picture of what's going on out there, because what we see in each of our little communities is only a fraction of what's happening, and it's it's only a tiny picture of it. Ezra and Leah were talking today about like what's going on in the Home Depots. Well, people here in the Chicago area don't necessarily see, for example, why ICE would be raiding Home Depots the way they are, because we don't have large groups of immigrants standing in front of Home Depots at their driveways waiting for jobs. But in LA, was up until recently a real common thing where these people would go and stand there for hours hoping to pick up odd jobs.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
if you didn't know the culture, you wouldn't understand why. But I lived in LA for 30 years.
Right. So you understand.
Right. And
It's
so
the perspective.
and picking up perspective from different places across the country is really important, and getting it from an urban area and a suburban area and an exurban area and rural areas is all really, really important if we're going to really understand each other and really make this work.
Thank you, Judy. That's very brilliant. I feel that every time I meet with people, whether it's in coffee and conversation or the after hours or sorting soup, there's always something that I learn or that I'm reminded of. And I'm also reminded of the Gestalt idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's WHOLE, that what we have together isn't just each one of us what we contribute. It's more like the story of stone soup, which is part of what we think about here in sorting soup, that everyone brings something to the table. Everyone brings something to the soup. And what you get is a lot more than that one carrot or that stone that it started with. That's, if you know that story. If not, we'll talk about it later. But it's we have really a nice think tank here, and this is why we're doing sorting soup. And maybe, and I'm going to ask Adrienne to speak in a minute because she has her hand up, but I just want to remind people, because between now and next time, because we're going to go back to a focused working kind of sorting soup as well as expressing. Maybe people can put in the chat next time one thing they did for their self-care that they found meaningful or joyful and or relaxing or something. And so maybe you can do that at the start of sorting. So I may be away. I'm likely to be away because I'm traveling. But maybe someone will remember that and remind people to do that. And I want to check what Adrienne has in mind here because we're winding down.
Yeah, I can pick up on that task. I wonder if either for this meeting or for the next meeting, if people could also share when they know they've had enough, like when they know that they need to back off from some of their organizing activist activities. Like what's your threshold and how do you know when you need to take a break? Or if you do it routinely, is that just good maintenance?
Good question. Do we have a moment for that? Because we're a little bit over time. Should we ask people or ask them to put it in the chat next time? What do you do to take a break? And how do you know? You don't want to do it only when you're pulling your hair out or when you're like, I've got an ulcer now, but that could happen. I mean, I don't mean that couldn't happen. I mean, we probably all get to that point where we're frazzled, and that's human. That's being a human. But does anyone have one idea about that, about what you find really, really helpful in cueing you that, okay, it's time for me to switch gears and so it doesn't have to be taking a break, could be something else, but switching gears. Aha, something to think about. I don't know, Adrienne, do you have one?
Uh, yeah, but it's a little reactive. I mean, when my temper gets short, like when I notice that I'm being short or dismissive with people, even internally, if I'm holding back from saying something, then I'm like, I'm probably thinking or resisting too much internally. And yeah, definitely cutting off some of those news sources. There are a couple. I'm looking together a list if anybody has any contributions of news sites that you can go to that are very quick, very like brief, that will update you quickly instead of going through a half an hour podcast or something like that. So yeah, that's my thought. But if anybody else wants to contribute, I'd love it.
I don't think you're alone in that, Adrienne, of that getting short, a little short with people or short inside where you're going like, up. that's bugging me. And anyone else want to, I think Judy has her hand up again. Yes, Judy. Do you have your hand up, Judy? I wasn't sure. Or was it still up? You're muted if so, yeah.
I've forgotten to take it down. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. I'm not going to say that I never get irritable. I also sometimes notice a feeling in my body that tells me to do something, to just, sometimes it's just switching gears or just sitting back and holding on to what my feeling is. And sometimes it's not what I thought. Adrian still would like that. One more piece of input on that, and then we're gonna call it a day or call it a night. Anyone else want to say one thing that tells you I need to switch gears here? Sarah, yes. You can unmute, Sarah. You're muted, so.
Okay, I didn't know if there was going to be a pop-up. Adrian, so what you said summarizes why meditation is so important, right? Is calming the brain, calming the mind so you can listen and not be impatient and not have your mind, to kind of be in the moment. So it's super difficult when you're smarter than everybody else, like they just need to listen to you. But it's part of that, bringing it back down to being grounded and why meditation is important. And yes, atheists can be spiritual, very spiritual. So it's just not believing in a God, and it's just all just names, for people, whatever. So anyway, that's all.
Okay, thank you. So we might now. I think we are at the wind up time. Am I right? I'm going to check with Chris because we did run a little over here, and I'm now charged with stopping the live stream. And does anyone else? How are we doing, Phil, on anything else we need to do? Saving the chat or something like that.
Rebecca, Hi, Melissa. I have saved the chat. So I think all we are left with doing is just stopping the recording, and you need to do that as the host.
I think I stopped the live stream and that stops the
Oh,
recording.
okay. All right.
Is that
So
right?
I think
Am I
we're
right, Bill? Okay, thank you. It's my first on this particular technical task. Even I sort of know Zoom, but I didn't know this one because I don't live stream anything. All right, so I'm going to do that. It's not letting me, but that's okay. And we'll say thank you to everyone. I'm going to hang in till I can do this. I might need suggestions.
I think Bill's back on the call, so he
It's there because
should.
I'm clicking on it, but I'm not getting anything. Oh, wait.